The first time a drunk HOA president broke into my house at 11 at night, she didn't bring a weapon, she brought a folder, like paperwork was going to save her from catching consequences. I wish I was exaggerating for dramatic effect, but no, this is North Carolina, and the most dangerous thing in my kitchen that night was a woman named Karen with a laminator and a God complex. I moved here because I was done with city noise, done with traffic, done with waking up in a house that still smelled like the life I'd lost back in Seattle, the kind of smell that sneaks up on you when you're not ready and knocks the air out of your chest. Like grief has hands, so I bought a little red brick cottage on an acre and a half of slightly wild land, the kind of place where the grass doesn't match the neighbors and nobody cares, where the nights are dark enough to actually look like night. And the quiet feels like a blanket instead of an emptiness. And the best part, no HOA. That wasn't a bonus, that was the whole point. I didn't move across the country to get fined for having the wrong shade of beige on my shutters. I moved to breathe again. Weekdays, I worked remote. Avionics systems don't design themselves, and if they did, I'd still be the guy on call when they decided to get cute. Weekends, I rebuilt the back porch one board at a time, pulled weeds in the garden like I was yanking out old memories, set up a wood shop in the detached garage, and tried to become the kind of guy who could exist without constantly bracing for the next hit. My only real company was Max, a rescue mutt with more personality than most humans and a talent for judging people on sight. If Max didn't like you, I didn't need to hear your life story to know you were probably a problem. I barely talked to neighbors. There were a few nods, a few waves, the occasional howdy, like we were all actors in a low-budget Southern postcard. It worked. It was peaceful. It was mine. Then, 2 months in, the first letter showed up. Cream-colored envelope, gold lettering, and a logo that looked like somebody tried to recreate the American eagle using clip art and spite. I almost tossed it as junk mail, but it felt heavy, like it wanted to be taken seriously, which should have been my first warning. Inside was a welcome packet from something called the Wood Hollow Pines Homeowners Association. It started out all warm and sugary. We're thrilled to welcome you to our beautiful community. And then it slid right into the kind of language that makes your skin crawl: dues, bylaws, compliance, community standards, a calendar of social events that looked like a hostage schedule, and a form for automatic payments like they assumed I'd already surrendered. I stared at it for a second, laughed the kind of laugh you do when something is too stupid to be real, then tossed it in a drawer I call trash I might need someday, and went back to retiling a guest bathroom like my life wasn't about to become a sitcom with legal fees. A week later, letter number 2 arrived, and the tone had changed completely. No pastel, no welcome, just cold white paper and authority dripping off every line. You have failed to submit your membership dues. Total due, $480. Penalty, $50. Payment must be remitted within 15 days to avoid further action. It came with these historical jurisdiction documents that looked like they'd been photocopied through a sandwich, and a zoning map with a big red circle around my house, like I was the target of a suburban sniper. So I did the responsible, boring adult thing. I pulled out my deed and read it, then read it again, then did a title check because I'm stubborn and I don't like being gaslit by stationery. My parcel was outside the HOA zone. Period. That was why I bought it. That was the deal. That was the line in the sand. So I put together a neat little package. Copies of the deed, parcel map, a notarized letter of non-affiliation, and a formal cease and desist. Sent it certified mail, return receipt requested, because if somebody's trying to drag you into nonsense, you make sure there's a paper trail of you refusing the nonsense. The green signature card came back, someone signed for it. No reply. No acknowledgement. Just silence. Fine by me, I thought. Except then the weird stuff started. I'd find footprints along the side of my house. One set, deliberate, like somebody was walking the property line and taking their time. Not mine, not Max's. Sometimes the prints stopped near the back deck, like they were standing there, staring, and that'll put a little static in your spine, let me tell you. I checked the cameras, 3 basic motion cams, front and back. Nothing clear, just the occasional blur too far away to trigger the feed. So I upgraded, better resolution, night vision, the whole deal, because I didn't move here to be somebody's hobby. Then one dusk, I'm out back wiring a new floodlight. Max loses his mind. Full hackles, deep bark. There is a demon on this property bark. I jog around the side of the house and catch the tail end of someone in a beige coat slipping toward the road. My mailbox is open. Inside is another envelope. No postage. Hand delivered. Same logo. Final courtesy notice. Membership is not optional. Enforcement procedures will commence. I stood there staring at those words, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a while. Anger that's not hot, not explosive, but cold, controlled. The kind that says, okay, you want to play games, we're going to play them with rules you don't like. That night I put motion sensors on every corner, posted a sign, private property, and no trespassing, and no soliciting, seriously don't, and set my mailbox floodlight on a hair trigger. I named the whole setup Karen Cam, because you either laugh or you start building a bunker. The letters kept coming, and they got more ridiculous by the day. Now I had violations. My paint wasn't neutral enough, my lawn was too wild. My shed violated something called line-of-sight symmetry, which I'm pretty sure is not a real phrase anywhere outside a dictator's imagination. People started showing up too, not openly, not like normal humans, more like they were doing amateur surveillance. I'd catch them at the edge of my fence, phone out, clipboard out, pretending to jog while taking pictures. One woman walked up my gravel path, snapped a photo of my porch, and then literally jogged in place like she was buffering. I waved from the window. She took off like I'd aimed a laser at her forehead. That's when I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a campaign. The first real clue came from an older guy I ran into walking his beagle, limping little dog, sweet eyes, and that 1,000-yard stare you see on people who've survived a very specific kind of nonsense. His name was Mark, and he didn't even ease into it. He just looked at me and went, "You're in Karen's sights." I blinked. "Karen?" Mark nodded like we were soldiers, and he'd just told me the enemy's name. Karen Shipley, president of the HOA. She thinks the whole hill belongs to her. If she decides you're in her HOA, whether you are or not, she'll act like it's law. And then he leaned in a little and dropped the part that made my stomach tighten. She's got friends in zoning, and a cousin in the sheriff's department. So she walks around like she's untouchable. Sometimes at night. No flashlight. Just a binder. A binder. At night. Like some kind of suburban vampire that feeds on other people's peace. I went home and did what I should have done earlier. I got my attorney involved for real. Aaron, sharp guy, zero patience for nonsense. He wrote a formal notice of non-jurisdiction, included the title search, affidavit, the whole thing, and basically told the HOA to leave me alone before we turned this into court filings and pain. 3 days later, I came home to a laminated sign zip-tied to my mailbox post. Community enforcement in progress. Please address outstanding violations. No name. No contact info. Just bold Helvetica and entitlement. That same night, my mailbox floodlight popped on, and I saw a silhouette near the side yard. A woman in a windbreaker stepping back into the trees like she was part of the darkness itself. She didn't run, she just vanished. I texted Aaron, "Can you draft a restraining letter with teeth? I think I'm about to be HOA'd to death." He replied, "Already working on it. Also, maybe by pepper spray." I laughed, but I also locked my interior doors for the first time in years. Just instinct. And then Wednesday night, a little before 11, the doorbell rang. At first, I thought it was a prank. But Max gave that low, guttural growl, the one that says, "This is not a kid, this is not a delivery, this is a problem." I pulled up the porch cam feed, and there she was, short, stout, windbreaker zipped up like armor, hair pinned into 2 perfect buns, holding a thick folder like it was the Constitution. "Karen." She stared right into the camera, lifted her hand, and rang the bell again, slow, deliberate, like she wanted the whole house to hear her authority. I hit the intercom. "Can I help you?" Her face lit up. "Mr. West, I'm Karen Shipley, president of the Wood Hollow Pines Homeowners Association. I'm here to deliver a formal violation notice in person, as required." I said, "No, you're not. This is private property. You need to leave." She raised the folder like a badge. "By Section 14 of our bylaws." "Our bylaws don't apply to me," I cut in. "You're trespassing." Her expression didn't even twitch. She just stepped back, glanced left and right, and disappeared from the camera. And that's when my stomach dropped, because the back door I'd left it unlocked after taking out the trash earlier, and habit hadn't caught up to reality yet. Max barked like the house was on fire, and I heard it, the slow creak of my back door opening. I moved fast, not panicked, more like my brain flipped into that cold, narrow focus you get when you realize you're 1 second away from something stupid becoming something dangerous. I started recording on my phone, thumb hovering over 911, and then she stepped into my kitchen like she paid the mortgage. Folder in hand, eyes scanning my home like she was doing an inspection, cheeks flushed, posture loose, and I could smell alcohol in the air before she even spoke. This wasn't wine with dinner. This was, I made a decision, and I'm gonna double down drunk. You forced my hand, she said, slurring slightly, like she was the victim here. I stared at her. You broke into my house. This is not breaking in, she snapped, indignant. This is formal delivery under community authority. You're drunk, I said. I'm authorized, she said, wobbling like the floor was arguing with her. Max planted himself between us, growling, a furry wall of judgment. Karen pointed at my couch. I'm going to need you to sit down and listen to the expectations for compliance. I raised my phone a little higher. Say that again. She blinked. What? Say it again, I said, calm as ice. I want it on video. You just admitted you entered my home uninvited to enforce rules that don't apply. She huffed and lowered herself onto my couch like she was settling in for tea. I'll wait here until you're ready to be reasonable. So I called 911. I told the operator everything. Intoxicated intruder, known identity, entered without permission, refusing to leave, claiming authority that didn't exist. The operator told me to remain calm and not engage. I didn't have to try. I was calm in a way that scared even me. Karen mumbled to herself about property harmony, tried to stand and failed like gravity had finally had enough of her, and the room filled with this surreal hum. My phone recording Max standing guard, Karen on my couch like a villain in a comedy that forgot it was also a felony. When the flashing lights hit my windows, she perked up like she'd been waiting for backup. Oh good, she slurred. Mediation. 2 squad cars pulled up fast, one on the street, one crunching onto the edge of my lawn like even the cops were irritated. The younger officer stepped in, asked my name. I handed him my ID and my phone. Multiple angles, I said. Doorbell, back entry, interior audio. Karen tried to flip the story immediately. Officers, thank God you're here. This man is aggressive. He's violating community standards. I didn't even look at her. I just looked at the cop like, please, I am begging you, let reality do the talking. The younger officer watched 20 seconds of the footage and let out this low whistle, passed it to his partner, and they exchanged that look. The one that says, yeah, this is going in the weird file. The older officer turned to Karen. Ma'am, have you been drinking? She scoffed. Excuse me. I can smell it from here, he said, and held out a breath test. She blew and the number popped up. 1.14. Her face changed, not scared exactly, more like offended that math had betrayed her. Ma'am, the officer said, voice flat, you are legally intoxicated, trespassing inside a private residence, and we have probable cause that you misrepresented authority to coerce compliance. You're under arrest. And right there was the moment the universe finally decided to stop being subtle. They cuffed her, guided her out, folder spilling papers across my floor like confetti at a bureaucratic wedding. She muttered community standards, all the way to the cruiser like it was a spell that should have protected her. The second the door shut, I exhaled this long, slow breath I didn't realize I'd been holding for weeks. Max hopped onto the couch and took her spot immediately, like he was disinfecting the territory out of spite. Outside, porch lights started snapping on up and down the street. One, then another, neighbors peeking through blinds like prairie dogs at a disaster movie premiere. Somebody yelled from down the block. Was that Karen? I yelled back, yep. There was a pause, then laughter, and I heard clapping, actual clapping, and for the first time since I moved here, I felt the neighborhood shift like a heavy door finally opening. Here's the twist though. The real one. I thought Karen was the whole problem, like if you remove the bully, you get your peace back. But the next morning, when I posted a 10-second clip online, just her stumbling into my kitchen, waving that folder, slurring about authority. No commentary. My phone practically caught fire. Hundreds of comments turned into thousands. DMs poured in. Neighbors I'd never met were sending screenshots of violation letters, security clips of her creeping into yards, stories about her shining flashlights into windows, threatening fines for rose bushes not being geometrically harmonious. Even a guy saying she threatened to report him because his mom parked on the street for 2 hours. And then, this part made my skin crawl. A former board member messaged me privately and said Karen had a binder called the watch list, license plates, schedules, dog names, like she wasn't running a neighborhood, she was running surveillance. That's when I realized something I wish I'd learned earlier in life. Power doesn't always wear a uniform. Sometimes it wears a windbreaker and a smile and hides behind words like community. Because community sounds warm while it's tightening a leash around your neck. A local reporter caught wind, did an interview, the story went public, arrest, allegations, patterns of abuse, and once it hit daylight, it couldn't crawl back into the dark. The county started looking at finances. People started digging. Turns out there were liquor store receipts, executive refreshments, catered dinners, rental cars for field inspections, and a line item that made everybody laugh and gag at the same time: executive beverage fund. Karen wasn't just drunk in my kitchen, she'd been getting drunk on everyone's money and calling it governance. At the hearing, the prosecutor laid it out: my footage, other households' reports, thousands in untraceable expenses. The judge looked like he'd been tired since 1998, raised an eyebrow, and said that one word that can change a bully's whole world: restitution. Karen took a plea deal: probation, mandatory rehab, restitution, and the best part, a permanent ban from holding any HOA or community leadership position in North Carolina. They didn't just kick her out of the driver's seat, they took away the keys and welded the door shut. And the HOA itself? It didn't survive the spotlight. The board started resigning like rats bailing off a sinking ship. The neighborhood organized, petitioned, and voted to dissolve the HOA entirely, nearly 75% in favor. By the end of the month, it was over. The HOA website went blank. The clubhouse got padlocked, later sold off, turned into a tool rental depot, which honestly felt like poetry, power converted into something useful. And me? I went back to my porch, Max at my feet. The same quiet, but different now, not the quiet that makes you listen for footsteps, but the quiet that feels earned. I put up a new sign on my gate: private property, no HOA entry, especially not after 10 p.m., and it became a running joke. People took selfies with it. Somebody made a t-shirt. I didn't mind. Humor's a relief valve, and after you watch a grown woman get arrested for weaponizing bylaws, you learn to laugh where you can. The moral, if there is one, isn't HOAs are evil, or Karen got what she deserved, even though yes, she did. The real lesson is uglier and simpler. Unchecked power doesn't start with a crime. It starts with everyone shrugging at the small stuff, the petty letters, the just comply, the be a good neighbor. Because it's easier to avoid conflict than to fight back until one day the person holding the binder decides your front door is just another boundary they can cross. And karma doesn't always come dressed like lightning and thunder. Sometimes karma comes as a cheap doorbell camera, a dog with good instincts, and a judge who's seen enough nonsense to recognize a tyrant in a windbreaker. Last I heard, Karen moved away, sold her house to a young couple who painted the shutters seafoam green. The thought of that still makes me smile, because somewhere out there, she's probably looking at that color in her nightmares, powerless to do a damn thing about it. So here's my question for you: where's the line between keeping order and abusing power? And if someone crosses it, what's the right response? Walk away, fight back, or let karma do the work? Drop your take in the comments. Tell me if you think what happened was justice, overkill, or just long overdue reality, and if you've ever dealt with an HOA, a bully, or someone who thought rules were only for other people. I want to hear your story too.